You know, sometimes you hear about a local incident that just really it cuts through the noise, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And that seems to be what's happened here in Rajkot. This situation at Karnamati International School in Railnagar.
Yeah, it's deeply concerning. It apparently began back on April 11th, 2025.
Right, with
Yeah.
a little girl just 4 years old coming home from school saying she was hurting.
And what's unfolded since then, well, it's become this really troubling mix of very serious allegations and equally firm denials.
Leaves you wondering what actually went on.
It really does. And when you hear about a child that young reporting specific pain, especially in, private areas, alarm bells just go off.
Instantly.
Yeah. And look, we're basing this discussion on the news reports that have come out, so it's still very much a developing situation. We need to be careful.
Absolutely. Our aim here is just to sort of unpack what's known so far, try and get some clarity, not jump to any conclusions.
Exactly. We need context.
So the initial reports,
Yeah.
they paint this picture, right? The 4-year-old comes home, complains of pain. Apparently, the mother, maybe initially thought it wasn't serious, which I think any parent might do for a moment.
Sure. You hope it's nothing. A little bump or something.
But the pain didn't go away. And then the next day, this is where it gets really alarming, they found some kind of sticky discharge.
And that changes everything. That persistence, the discharge, that signals something is definitely wrong.
So they went to a private hospital.
Yes, and that's where the medical side really kicks in. The doctors there, they found internal injuries to her private parts.
Internal injuries in a 4-year-old.
It's awful to even contemplate. And understandably, the doctors immediately suspected potential sexual abuse.
Which then led to transfers, right, to bigger hospitals.
That's right. First Rajkot Civil Hospital, and then Jana Hospital, which is more specialized. That really tells you how serious the injuries were perceived to be.
It wasn't just a minor thing they could handle quickly.
No, clearly not. And it was at this point that a medico-legal case was filed with the Pradimanagar police.
Okay, so what exactly does a medico-legal case mean in this context?
It's basically a formal flag from the medical team to the police. It says, we've treated injuries here that we suspect might be linked to a crime. It triggers the official investigation.
Got it. And the accusation, based on the mother's complaint, it points to a teacher.
Yes, a teacher named Mittalben.
And the specifics of the allegation are quite disturbing. The use of a pen or maybe some other object.
It's a very specific and frankly bizarre detail, isn't it? Using a pen like that.
Exactly.
Well, it's hard to process. Makes you wonder about the circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. So following that complaint, formal charges were filed.
And crucially, it's not just about causing physical harm.
Right. You mentioned the POCSO Act.
Exactly, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offenses Act. This is major. It's designed specifically to protect kids from sexual abuse, exploitation, the works. It carries very heavy penalties.
So invoking POCSO signals the authorities are taking the possibility of sexual abuse extremely seriously.
Absolutely, it elevates the whole investigation.
And there was another act mentioned too, the Atrocities Act.
Yes, the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act. Its inclusion suggests the investigators are looking into whether social identity or discrimination played a role.
So perhaps the child or family belongs to a marginalized community.
That's the implication, yes. We don't have confirmation on the specifics, but the use of that act broadens the scope. It brings in potential issues of motive, bias, how the whole thing's been handled. It adds another layer of complexity.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, how did they land on this specific teacher, Mittalben?
Well, according to reports, during the questioning process, and this involves the child, she was shown photos. Teachers, students, other staff members.
Okay.
And she reportedly pointed to Mittalben's photo.
Wow. But, I mean, we're talking about a 4-year-old's testimony here. That has to be handled incredibly carefully, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a critical piece, but you have to be so cautious. A child that young, their understanding, their memory, suggestibility, it's all very different.
So how do the police navigate that?
Well, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Jagdish Bangarwa, specifically mentioned a psychiatric evaluation for the child. That's standard and vital in these cases.
To sort of assess her understanding and reliability.
Exactly, to try and understand what she's communicating, how reliable it is, and rule out any, external influences or coaching, potentially. It's a very delicate process.
Okay. So on the other side of this, you have the accused teacher, Mittalben.
Who has denied everything, flat out.
And the school seems to be backing her up.
Very strongly. The school director, Ashok Pampar, made public statements supporting her.
And their main defense hinges on CCTV.
That seems to be the core of it, yes. They claim they have complete CCTV footage from April 11th, the day in question.
And they say it shows nothing. No foul play.
That's their assertion. They're presenting it as proof of innocence.
But there was that comment from the director,
Yeah.
that something about cooperating if the parents are genuine.
Yes, that quote stood out. It does seem to cast doubt on the parents' motives, which, given the documented medical injuries,
Feels a bit off, doesn't it?
it certainly raises an eyebrow. Questioning the parents' genuineness when doctors have found internal injuries seems insensitive at best.
And about that CCTV footage, I mean, cameras don't see everything, do they?
That's the crucial point. CCTV can be invaluable, but it's not infallible. There can be blind spots, technical glitches happen, the angle might miss the crucial moment.
Right. Or something could happen very quickly, just out of frame.
Precisely. So while the school is holding up this footage as definitive proof, investigators have to consider its limitations. Absence of evidence on tape isn't necessarily evidence of absence of the event itself.
So the police, the Pradimanagar police, they're caught in the middle of all this.
They really are. They're collecting statements, looking at the medical reports, reviewing that CCTV footage very carefully, you'd imagine.
But like the DCP said, dealing with a 4-year-old witness, that presents unique challenges.
Immense challenges. You have the medical evidence pointing to harm. You have the child's reported identification. You have the teacher's denial. You have the school's CCTV claim.
A complex puzzle.
Extremely. And that psychiatric evaluation of the child becomes even more critical in trying to piece it together. They have to weigh every possibility: misinterpretation, accident, coaching, or the truth of the allegation.
It's no surprise this has caused a stir in the community. There was a protest, wasn't there?
Yes, on April 19th, the NSUI, the National Students Union of India, organized a protest outside the school.
What were they demanding?
Their demands were pretty direct: the immediate arrest of Mittalben and also action against the school management.
Shows the level of public concern, I suppose.
Definitely. It reflects a wider anxiety about child safety in schools. Trust is fragile when things like this happen. Apparently, some NSUI workers were even detained by police during the protest.
Right, highlights the tension. And sadly, this isn't the first time concerns about safety in schools have surfaced, even specifically looking at POCSO cases.
No, unfortunately not. POCSO itself came about because of a need for stronger laws, and we've seen other incidents in Gujarat and elsewhere. Remember the principal booked under POCSO in 2022?
Vaguely, yes.
And that teacher in Villapuram in 2023 arrested over inappropriate videos. These aren't isolated system shocks. They point to ongoing vulnerabilities.
It suggests that while the laws exist, implementation and vigilance are still huge issues.
Absolutely. It raises questions about oversight, training, maybe even the culture within some institutions. Are the systems robust enough?
Let's circle back to the medical evidence for a second, because it seems so concrete compared to some other elements.
It's incredibly significant. Internal injuries severe enough to cause an infection in a 4-year-old.
Yeah, that's not just falling over in the playground.
Highly unlikely. Doctors saw this, suspected abuse, and escalated care. The infection itself is a serious indicator of significant trauma. It's hard evidence that something damaging occurred.
And how has the public been reacting overall? You mentioned the protest.
Well, as you'd expect, it's strong, and it seems quite divided. Online, on platforms like X, Twitter, and locally in Rajkot.
Divided how?
You see many people demanding justice for the child, wanting answers, accountability, totally understandable. But then you also see skepticism, people pointing to the school's CCTV claims, defending the institution.
Yeah, it's like the child's pain versus the school's reputation.
In many ways, yes, it becomes this public tug of war, especially when the full facts, like the actual CCTV content, aren't public knowledge. It creates space for speculation.
So where does this leave us now? What are the next steps?
The police investigation is the main thing. It's ongoing. And that psychiatric evaluation of the child is, as we've said, absolutely crucial.
And the outcome for the teacher, Mittalben.
That really depends entirely on where the evidence leads. The medical reports, the child's evaluated testimony, the CCTV analysis, other statements, it all has to be weighed up.
And meanwhile, there's a family at the center of this.
Exactly. Whatever the legal outcome, that little girl and her family are going through something horrific. The physical recovery, the emotional trauma. That's a long road.
You have to acknowledge their courage and even coming forward.
Absolutely. It takes immense strength to pursue this, especially when facing denials and public scrutiny.
So this case is very much unresolved. It's complex, full of conflicting stories.
Highly complex. Allegations, denials, evidence that points in different directions, potentially,
But the one thing that seems undeniable.
is that a young child has suffered. That's the core tragedy here, regardless of anything else. That needs to remain central.
Yeah. While we wait for the investigation to conclude, the focus has to be on finding the truth and ensuring accountability.
Precisely. And supporting the child's recovery.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the fundamental duty schools have to keep children safe. It raises tough questions about how we ensure that happens and how incredibly hard it can be to uncover the truth in these deeply sensitive situations. Leaves you wondering what more can be done to protect the most vulnerable in these settings.
That's the question we all need to keep asking.